Gentleman from Shenandoah, Mr. Gilbert.
Mr. Speaker, I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Gentleman has the floor.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank, regardless of some of the imagery that the gentleman has taken hold of and tried to use to advance the notion that somehow someone overreacted, I want to thank the men and women of the Capitol Police and our state police for upholding the rule of law. And frankly, Mr. Speaker, we have had a number of groups throughout the years and throughout even this session who have believed very strongly in an issue, who have come to Capitol Square, which, by the way, is the province of the Department of General Services, who sets the rules on permitting protests and such, not the Capitol Police. So if the gentleman wants to address his concerns to someone, I suggest he start with the Department of General Services. Capitol Police only enforce the rules that General Services sets up, as far as I understand, Mr. Speaker. But I want to thank men and women of law enforcement who addressed an issue that went beyond the permit process. And again, I alluded to those groups that have come here throughout the years and throughout this session to protest, to talk about an issue that's important to them. In fact, most of the people who show up here on Capitol Square protest an issue that is the most important thing to them in the world. And certainly that was true of the people that were here over the weekend. But just because something is important to you and you are upset about it or angry about it or motivated to do something about it doesn't mean you can disregard the rule of law, disregard the rules that are set up for protests in this square, and frankly put our police in a situation where they have to try and control that acting outside of the boundaries that are set up for lawful protests. So, Mr. Speaker, you know, we can try to say that someone overreacted, and we can try to say that that the images somehow run counter to the experience of exercising our First Amendment rights that we expect rightfully to go on here in Capitol Square. But when people do not obey the law and people do not obey the rules, they are putting our police in a position where they have to react. And thankfully, we have people who are very dedicated who do react and do try to control not only the rule of law, but try to make sure that our Capitol grounds, and frankly, that the gentleman from Charlottesville and everyone else in this chamber and in this building and on its grounds are safe. And I'm not suggesting that anyone was ever unsafe, Mr. Speaker. I'm simply suggesting that the protesters knew what the rules were. They violated them. They did so in a way that they knew was going to draw a response. And they did so in a way that they knew perhaps they were going to get arrested. And people have the right to civil disobedience in this country and in this Commonwealth. And they exercised it. And they should understand that if they exercise civil disobedience, especially when they violate the rules and the law, that there will be consequences. Mr. Speaker, we've had, again, any number of groups come to this Capitol, protest that which is important to them. The only time during this session we have ever seen people having to be forcibly ejected from the Capitol building, from the General Assembly building, for behavior which was not within the decorum that we normally expect in our civil discourse, was during the debate that the people were here, that during the debate that caused the people to be here at that time and on this weekend, Mr. Speaker. So, again, I'm very thankful for the men and women of law enforcement who protect us, who protect our grounds, who protect our Capitol. The gentleman from Charlottesville should also know that there are things that have gone on behind the scenes that he may not even be aware of. People receiving very vile, threatening emails and calls. A couple of members just reminded me of some disturbing calls that they have received that I think have been turned over to our Capitol Police. I think there have been acts of vandalism around our Capitol that the public is not yet aware of, and that the gentleman from Charlottesville may not yet be aware of, that were in the context of the debate that drew the people here over the weekend. So I just want to remind the gentleman, I know he was very measured in his comments and very measured in the request he made of the Capitol Police, but I wanted to make sure he was addressing his concerns to the right place, to the right entity, and I want to help the gentleman understand some of the things that have gone on behind the scenes that perhaps have caused our police to react the way they did. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.